Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Well, we all learned about the three branches of government in civics class, about the two chambers of Congress, the House and the Senate, and the general constitutional structure of our government. How hard it is to get hundreds of elected representatives of all stripes to agree on big legislation. What we did not learn about is the Elon Musk branch of the government. The world's richest dude, Elon Musk, effectively bought himself control over these United States, apparently. He spent $44 billion to turn Twitter into his personal propaganda outfit and promote Donald Trump. And then he went on to spend $250 million to help get Trump elected. He is now using that authority before Trump is even sworn in to unilaterally determine outcomes for the American people. A guy who's never received a single vote, who is constitutionally ineligible to serve as actual president, who polling shows isn't wanted there by the American people, I guess is now effectively running these United States. So last night, congressional Republicans unveiled a short-term deal, like there have been many others in the years I've been covering Congress, to keep the government funded through March 14th of next year. It was a last-minute decision to avert a government shutdown for the holidays ahead of this weekend's deadline. Republican Speaker Mike Johnson agreed to the deal. Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Dems still have the Senate majority, agreed to the deal. But they apparently forgot to ask Elon Musk. I don't think Musk has any idea what is actually in the bill. In fact, I feel quite certain of that. He urged his followers to use AI to summarize it for him, which, but he still spent the day whipping votes against it to his hundreds of millions of followers on the social media platform he owns. He tweeted more than 70 times against the deal to keep the government open, telling Republicans to kill the bill. And then once it looked like Musk killed the bill, again, this is all Musk, okay? Trump and J.D. Vance, do you remember them? Remember those guys? The guys that ran for office? Well, then they were like, well, they came out against it as well. Oh, I guess the train's leaving the station, issuing a hasty statement on social media and telling reporters that they now want a different way to fund the government.
Would you support a clean CR?
Well, what the president believes is we should support a clean CR so long as it contains a debt limit increase. That's the position of the president, and that's what we're going to try to push for.
Are you supporting a government shutdown then?
Have a good night, guys. Thanks.
Just to be clear, and we'll hit on this a little more, there's never any discussion of the debt ceiling in all of this. They pulled it out of nowhere today because Musk got ahead of him. That's why. Because Musk sees the initiative. Elon Musk, the guy who really runs things. He's not just Trump's co-president. I think that's way too low a title. He's the head dude in charge. And House Republicans certainly know who they are taking their marching orders from.
Elon put out a pretty serious post there, but you know, that's the sentiment of the American people. This is why we won on November 5th.
When sunlight is put on these bills, when now Elon and Vivek can talk about it, when members of Congress, when you guys, when we look at the bills, the American people don't like what they see.
The American people are paying zero attention to any of this. Zero. Elon put out a pretty serious post. Oh, well, then if Elon put out a serious post. The Republican House Majority Leader, Steve Scalise, confirmed the bill's not dead. It's unclear what comes next, or if there are votes for an alternate bill, as Vance alluded to, which now adds this other new wrinkle, very complex in. But Elon Musk, the guy who's running things in the Republican Party, and I guess the country, says he wants a shutdown. It's not going to hurt him. There's hundreds of billions of dollars. He's already declaring victory on Twitter, posting, "Your elected representatives have heard you." Oh, yeah, us. And now the terrible bill is dead, says the billionaire. The voice of the people, meaning me, has triumphed. Melanie Zanona is a senior congressional reporter for Punchbowl News, contributor to NBC News. She joins me now from Capitol Hill. Melanie, we have spoken many times amidst Capitol Hill chaos on this very program. You have covered a lot. This is a new one, I think.
Yeah, I am getting a little bit of deja vu from when I covered the Capitol back in Trump's first term. But now we have Elon Musk in the mix, which has really just sort of amplified the chaos. And I think it's important to point out here, we were joking about how much Republicans really are looking to Elon Musk for their cues, but they view him really as the most powerful proxy. They think he speaks for Trump. And so when he was tweeting that today, members were taking notice. That tweet was flying around. I saw people on their phones on their way to votes looking at that tweet. One of them pulled it out and showed me. And that mattered. I mean, Musk has Trump's ear. Musk spent hundreds of millions of dollars in the last election. He was talking about threatening to primary or have these members ousted if they didn't do what Musk was calling for, which was vote against this large CR, this large spending bill. And then Trump, really just threw an extra grenade into the mix when he said, not only do I not like the CR that Mike Johnson was going to put forward, but now I want you guys to consider a debt ceiling increase, which, just to be clear, no one was talking about this. The deadline is not expected to happen for another 6 months. I will say, Chris, that me and my colleagues at Punchbowl News had been hearing that Trump had been privately complaining about the debt ceiling and not wanting to have to do it on his watch for a while now. But at no point, at any point in these negotiations, were they talking about the debt ceiling. And that is an extremely complicated issue to try to throw in the 11th hour. So that's where we're at right now. We're days away from a government shutdown. Trump and Elon Musk tanked the plan that Johnson had cut with Democrats. And right now, it's just very unclear how they are going to get out of this jam. It's really, we've been calling it the nightmare before Christmas, because truly it is just a mess for Johnson and Republicans right now.
Here's the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, came out to talk to the press, and he had this to say today. Take a listen.
House Republicans have now unilaterally decided to break a bipartisan agreement that they made. House Republicans have been ordered to shut down the government and hurt everyday Americans all across this country. House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse.
Now, there's always asymmetry with these shutdown fights, because I think on a sort of substantive level, Democrats don't want to shut the government down, and Republicans tend to be like, what's it? Well, who cares? So there's always this kind of imbalance, right? Like, Democrats genuinely, not for political reasons, like just out of like what they believe, don't want to shut the government down. Taking that aside, and the people who could get hurt, which we'll talk about in a second, politically, there's no reason for Schumer or Jeffries to help Johnson out of this jam, right?
Exactly. Let me walk you through what the Democratic thinking is right now. They did this huge bipartisan deal with Speaker Johnson. He reneged on that deal. So their thinking is, if you're going to put up a plan B, maybe a clean CR, maybe this clean CR with the debt ceiling, although I'm very skeptical of that as well, you can do that, but you're going to have to do it with your own Republican votes. We're not going to bail you out. You walked away from that deal. Why would we help you when, after weeks and weeks of these tough negotiations and celebrating all these wins that we had, if you're going to pull the rug out from underneath us, we have no incentive to help you. And on the debt ceiling point, they don't even have to address the debt ceiling for at least another 6 months here. So there's very little incentive for Democrats to bail them out, especially when it was Trump and Elon Musk who were responsible for this thing going up in flames. And if the government were to shut down, Republicans are in control in the House. The Democrats are still in control in the Senate. But I think their belief right now is that Republicans would get a lot of the blame for a government shutdown. And they're also going to frame it rightly so as this is a preview of what's to come in Trump's Washington.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've learned from this is that, like, no one remembers this stuff in 3 weeks or a month or 5 months. So, like, the long-term political consequences, I think, are minimal. Although I do think the Elon Musk idea, Musk is calling for this. Just shut it down until Trump is sworn in. A month of, like, Coast Guard folks not getting checks and, like, real serious things happening. That would really, I think, be a disastrous situation to inherit as Donald Trump, with like a one-vote majority in the House and having to pass a CR right away.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. Musk is a billionaire, first of all, and he is not an elected politician. He does not have an understanding of how Congress works. I get what Trump and his allies are saying about trying to, we need disruptors and people who think differently because they believe it hasn't worked the way, normal politicians have tried to run government. But that being said, this is what happens when you elevate someone like Musk to a position. Johnson it's his own fault here. He elevated Musk, and now Musk is stabbing him in the back by threatening to take down this bill, threatening his members. So that's the situation we find ourselves in now. And again, this is just going to be a taste of what's to come over these next few years here.